Hey everyone, before I get started, I just want to remind you that if you like my content, hit that like button, subscribe to my channel, and then join the Militia Man and Crew Patreon community by clicking the link in the caption. Good evening everybody, Militia Man and Crew. It's Sunday, it's November 9th, and I hope everybody had a great weekend. I know it's been a beautiful one in the Northwest. Clear skies, very little wind, and moderate temperatures. Air quality is wonderful, thank God. But anyway, look, I guess kind of the topic tonight is going to be sort of a collective, and I'll try to make it sound as simple as possible, because sometimes I get some comments that, you know, sometimes it's a little too deep and they don't quite understand and stuff like that. But that's okay, because you know what? I've been doing this for like 15 years. It's a lot of hard work, and I believe in what I own. And you've probably seen me say that before. It's really important that we know what we own, especially in this environment with high inflation and all that stuff. And so collectively, you know, the Iraqi dinar is one currency for sure that I believe, in my heart, is going to make a big change in the near future. Is Iraq going to impact other countries and other regions and around the world? Absolutely. And that's why you should know what you own, because that's going to be important into the future. And it would have been probably far more important if you'd have known that 15 years ago, because there's a lot of trading partners that are going to probably have some impact. That's basically as easy as I can put it. So a lot of things I've been talking about too is real integration into the international financial system, and Iraq is basically doing that. And for the first thing I want to talk about is oil production. It hit like 965 million barrels in 8 months. That's a big amount of oil, you guys. And within the last couple of months or less, Iraq is now pumping oil through the Siam port into Europe. And that's a big concern, and you should probably analyze that, because what their goal is to increase that from what they're doing today. I think they've averaged well over what they talked about in a lot of the articles. But just for what it's worth, they're moving forward with this, and they're going to expand that trade to Europe. And again, it ties into the Euro trade, and that's great. And remember, I talked about the JICA, which ties into Japan. And then if you look back even 10 years, real close, you can see that China has been involved in Iraq with their currency. So all these big trading partners, even Vietnam is a trading partner. Even other countries in South America are trading partners. So keep that in mind. It could have a definite impact on a lot of different countries. That impact is going to be very noticeable at some point in time. And if you think about it too, is that what we're talking about is the circumstances are going to be different, because you all know that the electronic systems, Iraq has gone to the digital transformation side of the equation in the last few months, but they got started many years ago. Okay, so Iraq produced about 965 million barrels from January to August 2025, mostly from the southern Basra with 816 million barrels. August was the best month. They had 124 million barrels produced in about 105 million exported. 105 million barrels in a month, since August. That's a lot of oil, you guys. It's a lot of money. I think the average price is somewhere around $65 or so. A little bit less than in the past, 70 to 80. But bottom line is they've increased their non-oil revenue streams. Revenues that have been reached 73 trillion dinars, about 56 billion US dollars. So they've increased their revenues by $56 billion. And they also go on to say that it's about 90% of the country's income. It's a lot of money. A lot of money. Why does this matter? Basically, it all shows that the oil flowing steadily, even with prices here at $64 a barrel, it's the base that keeps the economy running while other changes happen quickly. Like I said, the non-oil aspect of it, the IQD systems, the electronic payments, taxation, e-governance, all those things. Interestingly enough, some of the things that have been taking place is relatively kind of like what I call the hush-hush. They keep it quiet because there really isn't these major headlines in mainstream media. And that's a tell, because we know that after the last 3 years of al-Sudani, there's been plenty of news out of the Middle East that we glean and other sources that show that what I'm talking about is actually talked about. It's just not so talked about that it's like really bang in your face. But they are giving us information. And basically for us, what does it mean? This is basically like a steady paycheck that pays the bills while you plan for a better job. All of these things are just basically, if you pay attention, you're planning for a better job. And that better job might very well be, once a lot of us that have to pay bills, have to do work for a living, we do the grind. Some of us do it 7 days a week. So, yeah, we understand that. Okay, the KRG exports about 7.5 million barrels through the federal channels. This is important because this is what's taken place. So since they did the historic oil agreement, they've now already done 7 million barrels of oil through the SOMO, Iraq State Oil Company, since the pipeline restarted September 27th. This is about 188,000 barrels per day. I think this number right now is actually low. I think it's more like 225,000. But again, they kind of keep it hush-hush, but I think there's data out there to support that. And after costs, basically, there's about $308 million goes to the federal budget. So out of that money, $308 million goes to the federal budget, with the KRG getting its 17% share plus bonuses. So the KRG is getting paid. So some of this information about salaries, you have to be very careful about how you study that. The tripartite budget's taking care of the citizens' salaries. Why there's been disputes between Erbil and Baghdad is a totally kind of a separate issue, because some of the things that they're doing between each other is they don't agree on some of the accounting. And that's why these new companies like Ernst, not new at all, but Ernst & Young, you had Oliver Wyman, all of those companies are in there doing the accounting. And so sometimes when things get kind of like hitches, it's probably because of inaccuracies. And things just don't add up. The books don't look right. And they're really strict about that. And that's what they get paid for. Number 3 is a budget reconciliation makes 2026 ready for unified plan. Budget reconciliation, that ties into the tripartite budget, which we haven't seen the 23-24 budget schedules yet. We just haven't seen that yet. But ultimately, they probably have that done, because why? There's that hush-hush, because it's related to the exchange rate. Those tables for 23, 24, and 25. The budget tables for 23, 24, 25, as far as I'm concerned, I believe that they're reconciled in the spending and the revenues. The financial management law for 2019 has helped with that to make it transparent. That FML 2019 was the mechanism that they have been able to use to be able to get to where we are today. And if there was a sensitive situation where they have to have an exchange rate, they'll have to keep that as close to the chest, because that's a very important issue. It cannot be just broadcasted and leaked out. We just can't do that. October 2025 had the best surplus in months, about $2 to $3 billion that have income. That's a lot of income, a surplus, if you will. $2.3 billion in surplus. So Iraq's making some serious money. And this is thanking the unified accounts that cut waste by about 15 to 20%. So the systems are working, and they're making money. And that's going to go to the Treasury. Iraq's. Why does it matter? It says this fixes old problems, so the 2026 budget can be unified and focused on growth, like factories and farms, without surprises. So they're factories and farms without surprises. So what they're dealing with is it means export. They're trying to get to the stage where they're self-sufficient in these items, but they're exporting, and that's one of the things why their non-oil resources are going so well. How does this tie to what I consider the hush? It says details are shared quietly to avoid confusion before the vote. So if they were to power stroke this and say things, it might disrupt that flow. But basically, what does it say? It shows the system is ready for bigger changes. And for us, again, this is like balancing our checkbook after years of a mess. Now you can plan the next year's spending with confidence. So by them taking care of 23, 2024, and 2025, they've planned so that they can spend in 26 for confidence. Another issue, number 4, ExxonMobil eyes bigger role in Iraq's oil fields. Well, keep in mind, ExxonMobil has been around for a while. That article that we have in Patreon, patreon.com, and our Discord chat room, it isn't telling the whole story. So in other words, it's sort of a hush-hush situation. It's giving you an implication that they're not even there yet, and that's not true. ExxonMobil CEO is optimistic about returning to Iraq after an agreement on October 8th for the Majnoon field. It says that's 38 billion barrels of reserves near Basra. It's early stages, but they need guarantees for a fair deal. But they don't go on. This is basic, like I said. It doesn't tell you about that deal that they're dealing with is with Shell, and that will probably be a takeover. And they signed that agreement back in, I think it was October 7th. So this is something that's already in play. And again, when we're talking about what's taking place and why I've been so focused in on some of these things is because of the election situation, is that we already see that the big companies like ExxonMobil, Chevron, and others are involved in Iraq, and they're bringing in money to the tunes of hundreds of billions of dollars. They're pretty confident that they're going to make money in the future. They're not going to do this with having insecurity at all. So Exxon's already, like I said, producing 200,000 barrels a day in Iraq, and they could add more to about 6 million barrels. So I read 5 million, but this particular article says 6. So if you think about that, they're talking about increasing their flow over a period of time to 6 million barrels a day for Iraq. That's if you take what they're going to increase. I think it's about 500,000 barrels at the Majnoon. So what does this matter? It's basically this increase in oil output brings in United States investment to $2 to $3 billion a year. So they already have a surplus of $2 to $3 billion. Now that if this goes through, they're going to have an additional $2 to $3 billion a year. And basically, why does it tie to my hush? It basically talks to this carefully. There's no big promises. It keeps things steady before elections, but it shows the world there's a lot of interest. And for us, it's like big money offering a fix to fix your car. Share of the gas you sell. More work gets done without you paying everything. That's the analogy that goes with that. Al-Sudani balances U.S. and Iran for stronger Iraq. It's kind of a big picture situation. The Prime Minister Al-Sudani is working to keep Iraq independent, balancing U.S. and Iran influences to avoid wars and build a stable country. As you all know, Al-Sudani has been relatively neutral. Remember, he's always been taking things to the courts when there's religious issues, or sectarian issues, tribal issues. If there's stuff that he needs to take care of, and so that he's not stepping on any one party's feet, he'll take it to the court. And he's been very successful in that, and I think the world knows that. And that's where that neutrality comes in, and he's done a really good job. So my view is Al-Sudani is probably, in the polls I've read, he's 60% win. That's pretty big. So how is it tied to the hush? Basically, this quiet approach avoids trouble by what they're doing, letting reforms happen without loud arguments politically, religiously, or any of that, leading to stronger dinar and more jobs, more stability, exchange rate stability. We've seen all of that. We saw the low inflation, 0.8%. You haven't seen that in the United States ever. So they've done a really good job. Basically, what they're doing is they're keeping pace with the strong neighbors, which we all know around the region, and they're basically growing the garden instead of a fence. You know, they're just growing the garden. So closing. In closing, look, in this particular segment, these points show Iraq's quiet work is building a stronger economy step by step. We can see it. The oil numbers and budget fixes are the base of it all, while deals globally and balance with the world of the future, right? With elections this week, so we got, they started today, and I think they finished up for today. I guess it went really well. I think they had an 82% turnout rate, which is big. And the expectation is there's more good news coming. I mean, ultimately, what else can you say? Pieces of the puzzle are falling in line or getting laid on the table. It's that good. So here's another circumstance we're going to talk about. We did an audio last night in Patreon, and I hope everybody appreciate that, and I hope and a lot of good comments. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Like I said, but anyway, some of the things that we are going to talk about tonight are in a lot more detail from last night. A lot more detailed last night. Al-Sudani's focus on basic services and jobs. Al-Sudani talks about his government's first 3 years since October 2022. This article, you guys, is really, really long. It's in Patreon. It's called "The Armed Groups Must Join the Security Forces." I'm telling you guys, it's a long read, and it's all edited in a way so that it makes it an easy read in Patreon and in Discord. But again, sit back for a few minutes because it takes a little bit of time to read it. But it's important because Al-Sudani's given his all. He did it all today. He really did. And he answered questions to the people and to the interviewers, etc. It's down to the street level. And he got some very good comments and complimentary because of the fact that he was there for them. He did do what he said he was going to do. And that's powerful because it shows that he's down to earth. Basically, what does he do? His goal, though, for Al-Sudani's is to fix daily life, improving electricity, water, roads, and families. Well, we can almost see they have almost, well, not quite, but electricity self-sufficiency. They have the ability to get this water deal done, historic, just like the oil deal. They've been building roads, taking care of families. That's his deal. And here he goes on and mentions that Al-Sudani created over 1.15 million jobs, and that's within the lot. They've shown that within this last week or so. That's awesome. And what is that in though? That's in the private sector. That isn't government jobs. That's private sector. So ultimately, they've been expanding their cash aid also to at least 900,000 poor. So they're taking care of the poor. Why does this matter? Basically, why? These are the small steps that make life better, fixing potholes, turning lights on, and lights without blackouts. In other words, they're getting in areas 24/7 lights. Here's a quote from him. "We started with the basic services for the people to build trust." And that's, I think, for the last 3 years, that's exactly what he's done. And ultimately, the next thing is keeping Iraq out of regional conflicts. We didn't see Iraq jump into the Israeli conflict or the Palestinian conflict or the Iranian conflict, etc. He didn't do that. And that's where that neutrality has been in play. He's been doing a really good job. Al-Sudani stresses a balanced policy, staying neutral between the U.S. and Iran, avoiding the Israel-Iran war. That's affected the region since early 2025. He says this has kept Iraq safe with no major attacks or escalations, despite pressures from militias and neighbors. Basically, peace means steady oil exports and no more economic shocks from fighting. He goes on, "We balance interests to protect our people, no wars, just for stability." Anyway, Al-Sudani's interview shows a leader focused on practical changes, services, peace, and partnerships. That's the basis of what that article is. Still suggest you read it, but like I told you, it's a long one. I think it's one of the longest ones I ever read. So anyway, with elections this week, these moves could lead to big steps like a digital dinar and better trade. That's kind of the basis of it. It's exciting to watch, and it means more opportunities for everyone. And I think the opportunities are going to be big. I really do. And just on the sidebar, you guys, there's a few more articles that are coming out about Indonesia dropping their zeros. Syria has mentioned in the past dropping their zeros. Iran, the neighbors, talking about dropping their zeros. And Iraq has been talking about dropping their zeros. And all of these countries tend to be somewhat related by technologies and or trade, etc. And so is there any coincidences? As far as I'm concerned, each and every one of those countries have their own issues and own capacities, but when it comes to doing large volume of trade, and if it's going to be in a digital environment, they're going to need to be on the same page. So that's what we got for you tonight. Thank you for being with us. Much appreciated. If you like, hit that like and subscribe button. Don't forget, turn on your notifications, and that way you know when I'm going to do another video. We'll see you soon. Thank you very much. And PayPal, thank you much again for being so kind, everyone. Once again, guys, don't forget to hit that like button if you like this content. Subscribe to the channel or join us at the Militia Man and Crew Patreon community for even more exclusive content. You can also donate to this channel by hitting the links in the banner to help keep this page up and running. Your generous support is greatly appreciated, as always. Much, much appreciated. Thank you so much and have a great day.